Oh my god, I can't do anything to get out of these options potential. We are returning the APOC though. Mounir, really curious to see what that first weapon will be, and it's the orb coming underway. Mounir's kill right now, very up close, very personal. Delta can find a lot more impact with the hammer than they did against Godly just a few, oh man, what, about an hour ago now? But of course, as I say that, Mounir was almost brought back down to the lower blast zone, struggling to find that footing back onto the stage. But now it's Mounir where the onus is on them. Great ledge guard into the side air. Mounir tries to make their way back forwards. Mounir doesn't go for the ground pound, instead a more risky side air, and confirms stock number 1 handedly.
Now we're looking at the same kind of hammer gameplay we saw Delta take into Godly to get those early, well, not early stocks, but those like even up stocks, get a lot of damage tagged on. We're seeing it here again. Damage has already been lapped with a nice stomps there. And Mounir, actually, like we said, he's the one with the winning record in this history with this matchup, right? It was at DreamHack Valencia that they played, and Mounir taking that one for himself up and taking a 7th place podium placement home, well, a top 8 placement home. But it's looking like it's a bit more difficult for Mounir as Godly already has him back in this kill percent here. Another down air or stomps there is going to do it. He finally claps back and evens up the stock before losing his with that beautiful Shoryuken taking off the top.
Yeah, really interesting to go to APOC too. The high blast zone ceiling is going to make things a little bit more difficult for Mounir to find those recovery punishes into the stock takedown against Delta. Especially now when you're almost in your stock behind against someone so ferocious in just terms of raw, sheer velocity that you can bring out the axe and hammer. It's going to be difficult to find a starting point here, especially to even things up. But Mounir's got to play a little bit more safe. As I say that though, Delta takes the stock lead back yet again. But Mounir's trying to find these up-close punishes, Remy, and it's been so difficult. Delta doesn't have to move a whole lot and play for the pure punish game. This orb hasn't found the impact that I think you and I were expecting.
It is the up-close punishes that we're seeing Delta get, and it's just so hard to deal with it because we saw him getting the same punishes against a player like Godly, but for the most part, I think the thing to look at here is, you know, maybe it's something else we can look at in the character department, because if you can't find these up-close punishes, if you can't get close and personal with Petra or Gauntlets, you know, if you can't play close and lose, if you can't get those strings, those combos, your aggressive gameplay, then the character doesn't really have much else to offer you, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, if I can't rush you down with Petra, then why am I playing Petra, you know?
Yeah, and especially on a stage like this too. We talked about how the blast zones are a little bit wider away, and it benefits someone like Delta so much more. So Mounir's opting to go for the off-stage play. It might be the best and, well, also riskiest option, but at least it's something. Great gravity cancel, unarmed D-Sig is able to enable away Delta's second stock, but a breath of air from the Taros pick will remove Mounir from game number 1. A simple hit. Mounir has to do this stock flawlessly if they want to take the lead in the game number 2.
Oh my.
Oh, so close. If Delta had a little bit more damage against them, that could have been a confirmation, but it's not. Mounir has to play so safe. Gauntlets only. Into the air, and Delta can't find any hits at all in this final stock. The miracle run, the cider could have been it.
Punish isn't there. The stomp Sarah will finally do it though. He was trying to go for a punish. You saw him just barely dodge that down there, but he couldn't make it back to the ground fast enough. Mounir instantly switching up for Petra, and it was like you were saying, that orb wasn't doing work. We didn't see the Gauntlets do too much work either until that last stock. That last stock looked like a completely different player on the Gauntlets. The domination was there, the reads were there, the double recoveries, the carrying him off the top was almost there, and just barely, if he could, I feel like if he could get his footing on that last punish there, if he could get what he wanted, it would have been a completely different game there. But we have a completely different game here as the Linfei is locked in once again. It's not the Linfei, the Chun-Li is locked in once again against Delta here. He has the match history with it against Godly, as we saw earlier. This time it's Mounir playing it, and this time it could be a different story.
Yeah, I was going to mention, we saw how dominant Godly could be on Chun-Li, so I'm wondering if Delta already has that practice underway, has kind of just that warm-up, you know, that muscle memory factor of having to face them just not too long ago, might be a big benefit for him going to game number 2. Mounir's able to find a lot more agency in this first game, however, purely just off of the spear. And now, like you said, that comfort pick of the Gauntlets, the much safer signatures underway. Mounir's going to take stock number 1 away from Delta.
It's like you were saying off the back of that spear, and we didn't really see the same thing with that orb, right? Like, we talked about how you need these heavy reads on both orb and spear to find value, and we saw the sidelight downlights come through there. Ooh, that NC is gonna throw him off the back end, and we've seen Delta get some nice KOs with that. This is the first one we've seen him throw out of this set, though, so it's gonna be able to maybe get some more in there. Downlight Sarah's not gonna confirm, not gonna connect, but he does go for another downlight. Now, like I was saying, we're seeing a lot of grounded gameplay on this spear here, just tagging on a bunch of damage and kind of spacing Delta away from him. It's really hard as a hammer player to deal with a spear player that won't just like blindly run at you, right? Because you have to move into him with those slow hitboxes, but he's able to just range you out, call out your jumps just like that. And hammer, you have to jump. It's hard to play neutral on the ground, and all you really have is sidelight to break that neutral. And Mounir, he's taking full advantage of that. He knows what you have to do to break that neutral on the ground, so he knows you're going to go for your aerial options. And spear, what other weapon is best for dealing with aerial options, you know? What other weapon is going to call out you in the air just with a raw down like that? That recovery is instantly gone. The Sarah is the follow-up, and you can just see he knew he was done. He knew his recovery was taken off. No inputs put out there, and he just gracefully falls out and says, all right, next game, next game.
It really makes me wonder what Delta's change of pace has to be here, because we saw Mounir find a lot more value off of the signatures alone, away from the Petra pick from we saw in game number 1, where they didn't really come out at all. In fact, the majority of the signatures were coming out from unarmed instead of having any actual weapons underway. But now we get to see these gauntlets and the spear, 2 weapons now in the arsenal of Mounir, finding a lot more value. And another important thing is that when we see Mounir on that spear, there's a lot more reset potential against Delta. The nairs have been so strong, especially against his hammer, to shut down any possible start that Delta wants to bring. Mounir, though, when Axe is underway from Delta, brings out the gauntlets and has just this up-close potential, really taking a lot of pages out of the Godly playbook. That spear is back, and the KO potential here is so strong against Delta, especially on a very wide stage like this. But the hammer might be the benefit.
Now, a very back and forth early stock there for the two of them, but towards the end there, as soon as Delta picked up this hammer, it completely changed. You know, they were both in the orange, and all of a sudden, we have Mounir in the red and a weapon throw to confirm that stock. Aggressive option from Delta here is going to cost him a lot, though. Now, we saw the sweat drops come out. Yep, we saw the sweat drops come out. I could hear you going for a sip of water there, and instantly we have a downer to confirm that edge guard from Mounir. And things can change fast in this game. It was like Mounir lost his first stock equally as fast. You know, you just look away for half a second, and it's from even to completely gone. Once again, right there, even to completely gone. Just as I'm speaking about the last stock.
And Delta's not even trying to make the comebacks once Mounir has that off-stage potential. I'm wondering now what the mental is like for Delta, and if we're going to see a legend swap going into the next game. Because once Delta goes offstage against these gauntlets, it's pretty much game over. This has been the best run so far for the offstage play. Delta's able to retrieve themselves back forwards, but once Mounir gets started, he doesn't stop. A 2-stock lead. What a turnaround from game number 1.
Another very convincing win there. I'm pretty sure the second game was also a 2-stock. So going into a second 2-stock, you have to take a breath and say, okay, what can I lock in against this? What are my options here? And we're seeing Delta do just that. He's going to instantly lock in the Teros and go right back at it. I think the Teros is what's gonna work best, and I say that solely just because we're seeing value come out of both the weapons. On Axe, it's very well placed hits building up this damage, and on hammer the stomps are coming through, the down air, I mean the combo potential, the side airs are really good, they're placed well. He just needs to slow it down in these interactions towards the end of these stocks, trying to find more value off rather than kind of getting rushed down like he is.
So worth mentioning that last game was the only time we saw a stage that wasn't Apocalypse either. Delta insta-ban Demon going into this last game. It was just too wide of a stage, I think, again, to find value off of that hammer or the axe. And we're seeing Delta just feel so much more comfortable on a stage like APOC. A little bit shorter, blast zone still pretty wide, but still can benefit something like the side air off of a hammer. Mounir, though, stage control once more, tries to find that the recovery into a gravity cancel, slide into the ground pound. Delta takes that first stock back, and now Mounir's the one where the onus is on him to find that value into this next weapon. The gauntlets are out. Well, against the hammer, where these setups are much more viable, the downlight into so much up air potential has worked out well against Mounir, but now getting a little overzealous. Fishing for the neutral sig off that hammer doesn't quite work, and the punish off the ledge sends Delta possibly down to their second stock, but the reversal with the recovery. Delta's able to stay alive.
Delta finding a much more stable third game here, and I think on that second stock, it was off of what we talked about just a second ago, off that, okay, just kind of after you get that first stock lead, that explosive play, you just kind of focus it up and try to get as much damage stacking as you can. Mounir is going to stay on the aggressive. He's going to keep coming at you, so you get the punishes off. Now, Mounir with a dodge read there is going to finally take Delta's stock, take Delta's first stock off, but he's already doubled him lapped him in damage and a stock, so he's going to be able to stick comfortably on this and just kind of go for chip damage, play how you want, right? As long as he doesn't get too extremely knocked out, get gimped or something, he has a lot of room to work with.
It's really a battle of confidence right now between both these players. As long as Mounir can just remain with the stage control, find any sort of advantage off stage, then it should be Mounir's game. But like you said, a stock behind already, a good start up there, a huge swing of Mounir off stage for Delta. The ledge guard doesn't quite work. Allows Delta to get baited back onto the stage for more damage. A signature here needs to come out from Mounir in order to make things a 1-to-1 stock line. A great dodge once more, setting things up with those gauntlets. All it takes though is a great recovery, and Delta will be sent down to their final stock. For the startup, it's a slow one, it's a struggle, and a punish from Delta for 2 stocks to win.
Mounir again with the over-aggression, getting punished for it. You can just see there how much it's costing him. Now that's a almost even damage gap, right? Only 30 apart, but Mounir getting over-aggressive off stage and in these corners, these ledges, is letting Delta completely kind of get some nice knockouts on him, some knockouts that you wouldn't expect him to get. Now, we're going to a third game here. Apocalypse has been banned out. He's saying, all right, I'm going to either force you to go Demon or wherever else I want, and a completely new pick is locked in. 2 weapons that we haven't seen in any of the other picks. The Jaeyun, the Greatsword is being pulled out, and we had the pleasure of watching Southeast Asia yesterday, where Bagus was playing the Greatsword, and now we have it pulled out here in EU lowers bracket. I want to see what they can do with it.
And this is usually Mounir's last resort. We saw the same exact final game pick coming out from Mounir in DreamHack Valencia against S-Scrape. And that, and Jaeyun, found a lot more value than the Petro or even the Mirage against something so volatile like the Orion pick that we see S-Scrape love to bring out. This Greatsword's going to find a lot early on, but again, it comes down a lot to the ledge guard value. Delta, immediately struggling, can't find the proper spacing against it. And now with the sword to help finish off these opening stocks, this will be a great turnaround for Mounir to find something that Delta might not be as familiar with.
Ooh. All right, we have these punishes coming through, and it's looking good so far. He's been able to even it from from the deficit that he was at without losing that stock yet. And I'm just gonna say right now, from watching that first stock alone, we're gonna need some dodges to come out when we're getting hit by these great sword strings, right? It is scary. You don't want to go for those dodges because if you get red, then it's gone from bad to worse. But if we don't dodge at all, then we're getting hit for free. And that was kind of the story of that first stock there, getting hit for free off those 3 pieces.
Oh, I love that weapon skin. It's like a gigantic angel's wing going down against Delta. And really, that's what it is for Mounir. It's a miracle maker. This is exactly what you need if you want to stay in the tournament. And Delta is just running away, fully respecting Mounir's weapon. A good way to find the confirmation for stock number 1. Still an even game, though. This is probably the most even we've seen these 2 players in the entire set.
Yep, he wanted to keep his hammer there, but he ended up trying to like throw it away, going for the unarmed, but he picks it back up almost instantly, and the damage there, like I was saying, once again, fully even. You were talking about how close this is. It's just like, it's more than words can put it into effect. I couldn't even tell you what damage they both are. It's just both orange from them. The dodge reads are coming out, but they're not connecting, and you can see the difference here. If you can't get those dodge reads, if you can't get those big punishes, the Stomp Sarah is already doubling your damage output, especially on the Terrace.
Look how Delta's had to completely change their gameplay, fully respecting the great sword, just waiting for Mounir to get bored and pick up the normal sword. Using that hammer, just running away. Gives Mounir so much confidence in stage control. And while you might not be able to have the same ledge guard potential, say, as the normal sword, it's still enough for Delta to find at least some impact to get back onto the stage. But the hammer's been lost. Great sword's back out, and Delta just runs.
I love how fast and loose Delta switches his playstyle to when he gets this regular sword in hand. When he has the great sword gone and it's onto the regular sword, you can see Delta playing with a lot more confidence, opting to go for these edge guards in playoff stage. But when the great sword's out, it has to be slow, it has to be safe, and it has to be punishes like that keep the game completely even. Now, both these players are on their tournament stock here. Loser of this is out of the tournament as we're in the lowers bracket, and it's what they want it to be. It's Hammer that we've seen Delta play so many times, and it's the great sword that we've been seeing do work in this game. So far, it's Mounir finding most of these hits. We've seen multiple nairs come out. He only has him in the yellow. That's going to be a dodge. We finally, and it's sending him to Orange. Delta, you need to start clapping back, but another dodge has been taken, and it's going to be another 3-piece. The great sword is coming out now. I mean, it is staying in hand here. You saw him refresh it, so he's going to lose it and pick up another one. But is he even going to have the opportunity to lose it? Because we talked about how even it was, but Delta has not even gotten a hit on this last stock. The GC and Light isn't going to get, I mean, Ensig is not going to get anything. It's going to eat his dodge, and it's going to lead to him getting strength even more. Delta, what can you find here? What can you do to get back into this game? The recovery comes through. The recovery is going to be answered with another recovery, and Mounir is going to take for what was a close game, completely flip it on his head with multiple greatsword interactions and take that victory for himself on match point.
Unbelievable. I love seeing the Jaeyoon come out the very end of each of these series, because for Mounir, like we said, that's a miracle maker play. We saw Delta kind of diffuse